Hey guys, today we are going to go through the SAT practice number 10 for the math. We are going to go through both modules, so feel free to grab a snack, download the actual practice test. I'm going to pin that in the comments and come along with us. I am going to show you some different tactics of how to do each problem. I may even show you a couple of ways to solve each problem. I'm going to focus on the most efficient way, but also show you some different ways because sometimes different ways will click with different people. So here we go. Here's the reference sheet that they give you, and this is accessible in Blue Book. You can also actually follow along in Blue Book if you want to take your digital test there, or you can download the PDF and work it out by hand. It's up to you. Let's get started with Module 1, Question 1. The line graph shows the percent of cars for sale at a used car lot by given on any given day by model year. For what model year is the percent of cars for sale the smallest? You can see the largest dip here happened at 2014. The graph of a system of linear solutions is shown. What is the solution to the system? The solution is simply where the graphs cross, which is going to be at 4, -5. The total cost in dollars to rent a surfboard consists of a $25 service fee and a $10 per hour rental fee. A person rents a surfboard for T hours and intends to spend a maximum of $75 to rent the surfboard. Which inequality represents this situation? Since we have $10 per hour, that's going to be a multiplied factor. And the only one that has a multiplied factor plus an additional service fee is going to be option D here. The graph shown will be translated up 4 units. Which of the following will be the resulting graph? If we're taking this point or the entire graph but shifting it up 4 units, we're going to be looking at a vertex of 2, 2. And then let's do one more point if we can find one, maybe here. We're going to go up 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be at 3, 3. So now let's look at our options. The only one that's in the correct even quadrant is going to be option A. The equation gives the speed in miles per hour of a certain car t seconds after it began to accelerate. What is the speed in miles per hour of the car 5 seconds after it began to accelerate? Since we have the amount of seconds, that's going to be replaced with t there. So 40 plus 3 times 5 is going to be 40 plus 15, which is going to be 55. The function f is defined by f of x equals x squared plus x plus 71. What is the value of f of 2? Here, they're just asking us to replace every x value with a 2. So f of 2 is 2 squared plus 2 plus 71. 4 plus 2 plus 71, and that's going to be 77. An event planner is planning a party. It costs the event planner a one-time fee of $35 to rent the venue and $10.25 per attendee. The event planner has a budget of $300. What is the greatest number of attendees possible without exceeding the budget? If the event planner has a one-time fee of $35 to rent the venue and a $10.25 per attendee, and doesn't want to go over $300, this is going to be our inequality here. So let's subtract 35 from both sides, and we're going to get 1025A equals 265. Then we can divide both sides by 10.25, and that's going to give us A is less than or equal to 25.85. So the greatest number of attendees without exceeding the budget is going to be 25. The table gives a distribution of votes for a new school mascot and grade level for 80 students. If one of these students is selected at random, what is the probability of selecting a student whose vote for the new mascot was for a lion? For these types of questions, I really like to encourage my students to block out the irrelevant columns or rows also, because it can be pretty challenging to keep everything straight. We're talking about a student being selected at random, so that's going to be the total amount of students, which is going to be 80 here. That's going to be our denominator. And the probability of selecting a student whose vote was the new mascot was for a lion, well, that means that all of these things here are all irrelevant. So the total amount of votes, sorry, let's see here. The total amount of votes for a lion would be 20 students. So 20 out of 80 is going to be 1/4. Triangles ABC and DEF are congruent, where A corresponds to D and B and E are right angles. The measure of angle A is 18. So what is the measure of angle F? Let's go ahead and sketch this out. We know we have right angles. A is 18. D is also 18 because it corresponds to A corresponds to D. So then we're looking for DEF. Angle F is going to be the same measure as angle C. So we have 90 plus 18 plus angle F equals 180. So we are going to have here 108 plus angle F equals 180. Subtract 108 from both sides, and angle F is going to be 72. If 4x plus 12, 4x plus 2 equals 12, what is the value of 16x plus 8? Okay, let's look at this carefully. We can see here that 16x plus 8 is simply 4 times this value. So if we multiply one side by 4, we can multiply the second side by 4, which means that the answer is B. Which expression is equivalent to the one given where m, q, and z are positive? Whenever we are multiplying bases, we are going to add their exponents, which means that we are going to add the exponents for m, and when 1 is not written, it's a 1. We are going to add the exponents for q, then we're going to add the exponents for z. So the value of m, the value of the exponent for m is going to be 5. This is going to be q to the 9th and then z squared. Answer B. An airplane descends from an altitude of 9,500 feet to 5,000 feet at a constant rate. That is very important to know. That immediately tells us that it is a linear function. And it's also telling us that it descends of 400 feet per minute. So we automatically know that the option is B. The solution to the given system of equations is xy. What is the value of y? You can do this one of two ways, actually 3 ways. You can do substitution, elimination, or just graph them. So whichever option is easiest for you, go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and solve it by elimination by multiplying the second equation by 2. So 3x plus 6 equals 4y. Negative 6x minus 8 equals negative 4y. So we're going to get negative 3x minus 2 equals 0. So when we add over 2, we're going to get x equals negative 2/3. Then we just have to plug that in. So we're going to get negative 2 plus 6 equals 4y. We're going to get 4 equals 4y. So y is 1. I do think that typically that problem would be more easily solved in Desmos. So I will show you how to do that as well. So here's Desmos. All we have to do is type in our equation, 3x plus 6 equals 4y. And then the second equation here is going to be 3x plus 4 equals 2y. Okay, here's the intersection of the points, which is negative 2/3 and 1. We're looking for the y value, so it's going to be 1 there. Okay, now let's go to the second problem. Number 14 is also most easily solved in Desmos, so let's go ahead and do this. The function f is defined by the equation given, and in the xy plane, the graph is the result of translating the graph up 4 units. What is the value of g of 0? So here, all we're going to do is type in x minus 6, x minus 2, x plus 6, and because we are translating up 4 units, we're just going to do plus 4. The value of g of 0 is going to come from where our x value is 0, which is right up here. So our y value is 76. You can figure this out algebraically, but it would take a long time. So I definitely recommend using Desmos. The function f of w is 6w squared gives the area of a rectangle in square feet and if its width w is w feet and its length is 6 times its width. Which of the following is the best interpretation of f of 14 equals 1176? So what they're asking for is w is now replaced with 14. So if its width is w, that tells us that the width is 14. And then the corresponding area is going to be 1176. Option A. Number 16. The number of bacteria in a liquid medium doubles every day. There are 44,000 bacteria in the liquid medium at the start of an observation. Which of the following represents the number of bacteria Y in the liquid medium T days after the start of the observation? Since we have the initial value of 44,000, that is going to be the first value after the equal sign. So these are the only two possible options that it could be right off the bat. Now, what C is, since that number is less than 1, is actually a decreasing value. And since this one doubles, we are going to be looking for this 2 here, so the answer is D. The table shows the exponential relationship between the number of years X since Hannah started training in pole vault and the estimated height in meters of her best pole vault for that year. Which of the following functions best represents this relationship where X is less than or equal to 4? So let's take a look again. As I just mentioned, when we have a value that is less than 1 in the parentheses, between 0 and 1 to be specific, that is actually a decaying function. So this one here and this one here, these are both decaying, and her value is actually increasing. So that's not going to be possible. Also, the initial value is 1.23, and as I mentioned just a minute ago, that the initial value comes in the first number after the equal sign, so the answer is D. The function h is defined by h of x equals 4x plus 28. The graph of y equals h of x in the xy plane has an x-intercept at a0 and a y-intercept at 0b, where a and b are constants. What is the value of a plus b? The nice thing about this is that they already give you the y-intercept right here, so that's going to be the answer for B. And then in order to find A, all we have to do is replace 0. We have to replace h of x for 0 in the equation and solve for x. The first thing that we'll do is subtract 28 from both sides and then divide by 4. So our x value is -7, and in this case, that's going to be A. So A plus B is -7 plus 28, which is going to be 21. The answer is A. Y is less than 5x plus 6. For which of the following tables are all the values of x and their corresponding values of y solutions to the given inequality? So you have a couple options here. The first option is to go ahead and plug in all of these values and to see which one corresponds. The second one is to use Desmos, look at the graph, and then compare that to the table. And that route is the one that I'm going to take. I think it's a little bit faster that way. Here's Desmos. So what we're going to do is plug this in. Y is less than 5x plus 6. Now, what we have to be sure is that all of these values don't fall on the line, and that's very important because this is strictly less than, so we need to be under the line. Okay, 317 does look like that value would fit in here, so that one is going to work. It's definitely not going to be 325, and 321 looks like it is on the line, so it's also not going to be option D. Now, test taking strategy here. If our only options are A and B, we're going to look at which ones they have in common, which are both of those. So really, the 5 is going to be the determining factor here. When we have 5, we need to go up to the top here and see which one. So at 5, it looks like 35 is going to be out of the shaded region. So the answer is A. Now, since the answer is A, you would have gotten that solution to be correct first go around if you were plugging in the table. But the way that Desmos will be faster is if this answer was option D, then you would have had to do that 4 times. So I still would recommend using Desmos for a problem like this. Number 20, the solution to the given system of equations is xy. What is the value of x minus y? This is another problem that I would recommend using Desmos for. You can go ahead and solve this by using either elimination or substitution, but the longer that you spend on all of these problems, the less time you have for the even harder ones in Module 2. So when you can save time, I would recommend it. The solution is going to be where the graphs cross, and it looks like it's happening right here. Now we can use our pen and go ahead and plot that, and it's going to tell us that the x value here is -12, the y value is -47. So the value of x minus y is going to be -12 minus a -47. And that's going to be 35. A right triangle has legs with lengths of 24 and 21 centimeters. If the length of this triangle's hypotenuse can be written in the form 3 radical d, where d is an integer, what is the value of d? Well, you can see that both 24 and 21 are divisible by 3, so I'm going to break this down a little bit differently. We can rewrite 24 as 3 times 8. We can also rewrite 21 as 3 times 7. Since we know that the hypotenuse is also going to be 3 multiplied by some square root, we actually don't have to include 3 in our Pythagorean theorem, and that's going to make our math a little bit easier. So 8 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. We're going to have 64 plus 49 equals c squared. And then that math is going to be 113 equals c squared, and then you take the square root. So we're going to have the square root of 113, and that's our final answer. The floor of a ballroom has an area of 600 square meters. An architect creates a scale model of the floor of the ballroom where the length of each side of the model is 1/10 times the length of the corresponding side of the actual floor of the ballroom. What is the area in square meters of the scale model? I'm going to go ahead and sketch this out. So if we have the area of a ballroom here, and it's going to be 600 square meters. Now, the easiest shape to assume that this is a square, and we can just work out the math this way so that it will work out a little bit nicer. So the area is found by multiplying the side times the side. In this case, we would have side squared equals 600, which means that the side length would be the square root of 600, and we can plug this into a calculator. If you do, you're going to get 24.495, but I also think it's good to go ahead and write it as an exact form as well. We have a pair of 10s here, so our simplified side length is going to be 10 radical 6. Now, each side of the model is 1/10 of that. So this is going to be for the actual. The scale model is 1/10 of 10 radical 6, which means that the scale side length is going to be radical 6. Now, if we find the area of that, that would be square root of 6 squared, which is just going to be 6, and your answer is A. Which of the following equation represents a circle in the xy plane that intersects the y-axis at exactly 1 point? Now you can go into Desmos, plug these all in and identify that, but I'm going to show you a different, easier way to do this. First, let's go through and write out the centers of all of these circles. For the first one, our center is at 8, 8, and that comes from these right here. Remember that the negative is built into the equation, so all of these answers are going to have positive coordinates, just a reminder. The center for B is going to be 8, 4, the center for C is 4, 9, and the center for D is 0, 9. Now let's look at all their radii. Since all of the equations are equal to 16, the radius for all of these is going to be 4. Now we have to figure out which circle is going to cross the y-axis at most one time. So I'm going to work from option D first. If we have a circle that has a center on the y-axis, that means that the circle is going to intercept twice. So here's what this would look like. If this is 0, 9, and that's the center, then that's what our circle is going to look like. It's going to intersect that twice. So D is not an option. Now let's look at the center for C. C is at 4, 9. So if we were to have a shape like that, we would go over to 4, up 9. Since our radius is 4, we're going to go around 4. So the answer is going to be C, because that means that we're only going to hit the y-axis at exactly 1 point, since the center is at 4 and we're going 4 units away. In triangles ABC and DEF, angles B and E each have measure 27, and angles C and F each have measure 41. Which additional piece of information is sufficient to determine whether triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF? Now this goes back to geometry and triangle congruence, talking about side, 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 side angle, side, and so forth. So let's draw these out real quick to see what we've got. Okay, the first option says that we would need the measure of angle A. Now, if we have the measure of angle A, that doesn't tell us that the measure of angle D, so that's not going to be right. The length of side AB would only be helpful if we also had the length of side DE, because then we would have an angle side situation. Option C says the length of side BC and EF, and that would be an angle side angle situation. So this is going to be option C. The result of increasing quantity X by 1800% is 684. What is the value of X? Well, if we are increasing a quantity by that amount and only getting 684, it's definitely not going to be options A or B. Now we have to figure out how to do this with either option C or D. Okay, the result of increasing the quantity X, that's going to be 1.0, wait a minute. Oh, here we go. Okay, we are going to add 100% to this value. So we're going to have 1900% or 19. This is going to be 19 times X equals 684. When we divide both sides by 19, our answer is going to be 36. A window repair specialist charges $220 for the first 2 hours of repair, plus an hourly fee for each additional hour. The total cost for 5 hours of repair is $400. Which function f gives the total cost in dollars for x hours of repair where x is greater than or equal to 2? So the way that I would solve this is I would start off with the total cost for the 5 hours. We know that the total cost was $400 and that the first fee, the first 2 hours is going to be $220. So I would subtract those values and we're going to get $180. So if we take 180 and divide that by 5, we're going to get the hourly rate. So we're actually only going to divide this by 3 because the first 2 hours are covered in this 220. So we're going to divide that by 3 to get the hourly rate for the rest of the time, and that's going to be $60 an hour. So our answer is going to be B. What is the sum of the solutions to the given equation? Here we're going to distribute our x, distribute our 4x, combine like terms, factor, and then add them together. So we're going to have x squared plus x minus 56 equals 4x squared minus 28x. We can go ahead and add 28x to both sides. And then we can also subtract 4x squared from both sides. When we do that, we're going to get negative 3x squared plus 29x minus 56 equals 0. Now we're going to do what I like to call the x game to figure out what the solutions are. So we're going to start off by multiplying 56 and 3 and write that product at the top of the x. That's going to be 168. Now we're going to find factors of 168 that add to 29. The easiest way to find factors of 168 is to do a factor tree. And we can go ahead and use the factors that we already used to get 168. So we can break down 56 into 2 and 28, 2 and 14, 2 and 7. So our prime factors are going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. So take a look at this. If we group together these three 2's and the 3 and the 7, 8 times 21 is going to be 168. The sum of those two is also going to be 29. So that was lucky. Now we have to rewrite our 29x using the two numbers that we just found. So this is going to be 3x squared plus 8x plus 21x minus 56. Now we're going to factor by grouping, and this is going to be x negative 3x plus 8. Then we can take out a 7 from here, and it's going to be, we can take out a negative 7 so that our parentheses will match. So negative 3x plus 8. Now that we have a matching set of parentheses, we can go ahead and factor out a negative 3x plus 8, x minus 7. And now we can go ahead and set each of these factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides here. Then divide by negative 3. So one of our solutions is going to be 8/3. The other solution is going to be 7. Now it's asking us what the sum of those are. So we're going to do 8/3 plus 7. We have to get a common denominator here. So that's going to be 8/3 plus 21/3. And the sum of those is going to be 29/3. And that's our final answer. And that is the end of Module 1, so hang around for the start and finish of Module 2. An object speed is 64 yards per second. What is the object per second? This is called conversions of dimensional analysis. So we're starting out with 64 yards in 1 second. And what we have to do is take our conversions and get to feet per second. So we can start with 3 feet and 1 yard. And the reason why we're setting it up this way is because we do want our units to cancel. So if we were to stop converting it here, then we would get feet per second. All we're going to do is multiply these two values. You can tell by the 4 and the 3 being multiplied together that the last digit will be a 2. So this is going to be our answer. 192 feet per second. The scatter plot shows the relationship between two variables x and y. A line of best fit is also shown. Which of the following equations best represents the line of best fit shown? We can see that we have a positive slope because it is increasing from left to right. So our options C and D are automatically out. Then we have a positive y-intercept, which is here. So our answer is A. Number 3. The graph shows the linear relationship between x and y. Which table gives 3 values of x and their corresponding values of y for this relationship? Remember that our x values are going to be along this line, the x-axis, and then the corresponding y values are going to be along this line. So 0, 0 for option A is going to be here. That's not on there. So A is out. That means B is also out. C is 0, -5, so that's valid. 1, -7 would be down here. So it's got to be option D. What is the perimeter in inches of a rectangle with a length of 4 inches and a width of 9 inches? The word perimeter, P-E-R-I, means around. And meter means measure. So if you forget what this is, you're going to measure around. Think like a fence. So you're going to add up all the sides. That means our length is going to be added twice, which is 8. Our width is going to be added twice, which is 18. The sum of those is 26. Number 5, 7m equals 2 times the quantity n plus p. The given equation relates the positive numbers m, n, and p, which equation correctly gives m in terms of n and p. When it says that it's giving something in terms of something else, it's telling you to solve for m. And this is a literal equation, but it's only a one-step literal equation because we're very close to being able to solve for m. And all we have to do is divide by 7. So our answer is going to be A. What is the median of the data shown? The median is the middle number, so let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The middle number is going to be the fifth one because you see 4 on here and 4 on here. So this is going to be 79. The function f is defined by f of x equals 4x. For what value of x does f of x equal 8? What this is saying is to replace f of x, this entire thing here, with an 8. So we're going to take 8, set that equal to 4x, and then divide both sides by 4, so x is 2. Of 300,000 paper clips, 234 are size large. What percentage of the paper clips are size large? Well, if we were to have 200,000 over 300,000, that would be exactly 66% because it's 2/3. And we know that we have more than that, so it's going to be 78%. And you can also verify this in Desmos as well. 234 divided by 300,000. The function f gives the estimated height in feet of a willow tree x years after its height was first measured. Which statement is the best interpretation of 4 in this context? So let's just take a look before we take a look at the answers. Let's read the question again. So it's giving the estimated height of a willow tree x years. So this is the amount that it's growing per year. And this was the initial height. So let's go through and find out which answer this is going to be. It's got to be D. The graphs of the given equations in the xy plane intersect at a point xy. What is the possible value for x? The reason why they're saying a possible value and not the value of x is because these are going to intersect at 2 points. And the reason I know that is because we have a squared term here. A quadratic is a shape that looks like this, and in this case it is upward facing, and this is a straight line, so it's going to go like this, which means that we're going to intersect at 2 points. You can do this one of 2 ways. You can either substitute 76 for y, or you can go over to Desmos and graph it there and get your intersection points. I personally think it's just as easy to go ahead and substitute it. So we're going to add 5 over, which is going to be 81 equals x squared. Then when we take the square root of both sides to solve for x, we're going to get plus or minus 9 equals x. So our answer is B. Okay, this one here, each side of an equilateral triangle S is multiplied by a scale factor of k to create equilateral triangle T. The length of each side of triangle T is greater than the length of each side of triangle S. Which of the following could be the value of T? Let's think about this before we just start sketching triangles and all that. If we were to multiply something by 1, is the value going to change? The answer is no. If we multiply something by something less than 1, the value is going to get smaller. So that's not accomplishing the goal. If we multiply something by 0, it's going to disappear. This is the only feasible option because it's greater than 1. So the answer is A. That was more of a logic question than anything else. How many solutions does the given equation have? Since the left side equals the right side, there are infinitely many solutions. Vivian bought party hats and cupcakes for $71. Each package of party hats cost $3 and each cupcake cost $1. If Vivian bought 10 packages of party hats, how many cupcakes did she buy? This is a system of equations here. So we're going to let P be the party hats and C be the cupcakes. So if each party hat cost $3 and each cupcake cost $1 and she spent $71 and then bought 10 packages of party hats, this is the equation that we're going to set up, and we're going to substitute 10 for P. Okay, so 30 plus 1C equals 71. Subtract 30 from both sides, so C is 41. She bought 41 packs of cupcakes, or just 41 cupcakes. The exponential function g is defined by g of x equals 19 times a to the x, where a is a positive constant. If g of 3 is 2375, what is the value of g of 4? The reason that they're giving you a number to start with is so that we can solve for a, and then we'll use that to find g of 4. So first, we're going to replace g of x with 2375, and then we're going to replace x with 3. So we're going to divide both sides by 19, and that's going to be 125 equals a cubed, and that's a perfect square. I mean, perfect cube. So this is going to be a is 5. Now we can substitute this value into our original equation here. And we're going to find out when x is 4, what is the final value of g of 4. So we can plug this into Desmos and get our answer. When we evaluate that, we get g of 4 equals 11,875. In right triangle RST, the sum of the measures of angle R and angle S is 90 degrees. The value of sine of R is square root of 15 over 4. So what is the value of cosine of S? They're giving you some information here. They're telling you that it's a right triangle in RST and that the sum of the other two measures is 90. Okay, so let's go ahead and sketch this out. So they tell us that the sum of R and S is 90, which means that the right angle has to be T. Then they tell us that the sine of angle R, which is going to be right here, the sine of angle R is opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite side is going to be down here, which is the square root of 15, and the hypotenuse is going to be 4. So what is the value of cosine of S? Well, in order to find the cosine of S, we're going to put ourselves in this position down here. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this ratio is actually going to be exactly the same. The graph shows the relationship between the number of shares of stock from company A, which is X, and the number of shares of stock from company B, Y, that Simone can purchase. Which equation could represent this relationship? So when we look at our equations down here, we're going to be looking for a y-intercept of 40, and we do have a negative slope here. So let's see what our slope actually is. If we look at this point here and this point here, we're going down 10 units and we're going over 20 units. So down 10 over 20, and our slope is negative 1/2. Okay, so that's going to be our M value. Our B value is going to be 40. So when we're going through and solving these, let's make sure that we get those answers. Right off the bat, option A is not possible because we don't have a negative slope and we also don't have a y-intercept of 40. Let's rearrange. Oh wait, C is also not an option there. So it's either going to be B or D. When we solve for y here, we're going to get 12y equals negative 8x plus 480. When we divide everything by 12 here, we are not getting 1/2 for the x, but we would get 40 here. Okay, so let's double check and see if everything lines up with option D then. So if we have 8y That's going to equal negative 12x plus 480. We've got to divide by 8. So this is actually going to be a 60 here. So maybe I got my slope wrong. Down 10 over, oh, I did. This is 15. Okay, so this is actually going to be down 10 over 15, and that's going to make it a little bit different. Okay, there we go. So that's how we are going to get this negative 2/3 over here instead. Perfect. Option B. Which expression is equivalent to this where x is greater than 7? Number 25, which of the following expressions has a factor of x plus 2b where b is a positive integer constant? Now, I'm just going to tell you guys up front that this is pretty challenging to do. And honestly, I don't think it would be worth the time to answer on the SAT. My suggestion would be to make an educated guess, but I am going to explain to you how to do it. But just buckle up for this one. First, we're going to look at all of these options. Okay, you can see that they all have a 3x squared and they all have a 14b. That means that we have to really pay attention to the middle number here. So since we know that we have a factor of x plus 2b, we need to find out the other factor. And the other factor is going to be most easily identified by our 3x squared and our 14b. Now, we can rewrite 14b as 7 times 2b, and the 2b will be the part that comes from there. And then we can rewrite our 3x times x. So this is also going to be our x over here, the x plus 2b. So our other factor is going to be 3x plus 7, which is coming from here. Then when we distribute, in other words, when we FOIL, we're going to get 3x squared plus 6bx plus 7x plus 14b. So our options here, when we add these together, are going to be set equal to this. Let's take a look at this a little further. These two terms both have an x in common, so let's go ahead and factor that out. We have 6b plus 7 as the entire constant. So what we're going to have to do is set each of our numbers, our options, equal to this to see what it yields and to see if we get a positive integer for b. So 6b plus 7, if that equals 7, okay, we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. We're going to get 6b equals 0, b equals 0. That's not a positive integer constant. Now let's try 28. 6b plus 7 equals 28. If we subtract 7 from both sides, 6b equals 21. When we divide this, that's also not a positive even integer. Okay, now let's try 42. That's also not a positive even integer. So by process of elimination, we're going to have to pick D, but let's just check. 6b plus 7 equals 49. When we subtract 7 from both sides, we're going to get 42, which would mean that B is 7, which is a positive integer constant there. Number 26. Two data sets of 23 integers are summarized in the histogram shown. For each of the histograms, the first interval represents the frequency of integers greater than or equal to 10, but less than 20. Okay, so just to clarify, this entire bar, if there were one, would be values from 10 to 19. This bar would be 20 to 29, and so forth. The second interval represents the frequency of integers greater than or equal to 20 but less than 30, and so on. What is the smallest possible difference between the mean of data set A and the mean of data set B? So this question, again, honestly, is kind of a doozy, and it might not look that way initially, but it does take some time. So I'm going to walk you through how to do this. So let's find, I'm going to actually do the work over here. So we have the smallest possible mean of data set A is going to be 20 times 3 plus 30 times 4 plus 40 times 7 plus 50 times 9. And that's going to be divided by 23. When we plug that into Desmos, we're going to get 39.57. Okay, this is going to be the smallest for data set A. The largest for data set A is going to be 29 times the same values, and 39 times the same value, and 49 times the same value, and 59 times the same value, all divided by 23, and that is going to be 48.57. Now for the smallest mean of data set B, we're going to apply the same thing. We have 10 times 3 plus 20 times 4 plus 30 times 7 plus 40 times 9 divided by 23. And then let's go ahead and set up the largest one too. That's going to be 19 times 3, 29 times 4, 39 times 7, and 49 times 9, also divided by 23. Let's go figure out what these values are. So the two values I'm getting are 29.57 and 38.57. Okay, and then these are the values that we got for the mean for data set A. We're looking for the smallest possible difference, and so we want to look for the numbers that we can pair together. So the difference between these two would be 10. The difference between these two would be even larger than that. But let's take a look at this value and this value. That difference is only 1. So our answer choice is going to be option B. So now that you've seen how to do this, you can probably replicate it on your own. But during the test, I would only attempt this problem if you had enough time. Number 27, the perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 624 centimeters. The height of this triangle is k radical 3, where k is a constant. What is the value of k? Let's draw out our equilateral triangle. We know that the perimeter is 624, so we can divide 624 by 3 and get all of our side lengths. We also know that the height is k radical 3 centimeters. Whenever we have an equilateral triangle, all of the angles are 60 degrees. It's equilateral and also equiangular. Now, when we have the height, that's going to split this top angle into 30 and 30, which is going to make our triangle on the right and left 30, 60, 90 triangles. On our reference sheet, we can see that when we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, they are in the ratio of 1 radical 3 and 2. Since we have k out here, and half of this side is going to be 104, and we already know that this side is 208, and 208 is double 104, then our k value here is going to be 104 radical 3.